Is it possible to soften, even in the face of this seemingly hard experience we call life, in the face of the onslaught of media and fear and horror, and in the face of all of this survivalism and getting enough, and in the face of the wounds and the hurts and the traumas and the grievances, in the face of this internal reactive nervous system most of us have been conditioned to live from, in the face of, our internalized anger and grief, is it possible to soften? So softening is a courageous act of surrender. I don't really talk so much about courage now because it's confusing, because we automatically associate the word courage with some kind of strength, almost outer strength, courageous, like that. But that's not really what is being pointed to. There needs to be a strength of almost the will of the soul. It's not will of the self. It's almost the will of the soul itself, the spirit, the deepermost. To stop fighting and to soften, to accept. Not just accept defeat, but to open. It's not on the ego's terms. It doesn't mean defeat and therefore I'll be walked over for the rest of my life. It means something else. It means the rigid shell, the tight armoring that we carry around as ourselves, defending our vulnerability, defending our sensitivity, defending our hurt, our wounds, our very sense of self. Is it possible to soften that up a little bit? And you say, well, how? By being willing. In this moment, you don't have to turn it into a practice. You have to be prepared to just sit in the willingness and say, I'm staying. And then whatever comes up, comes up. Tears come, grief comes, sorrow comes, anger comes, fear comes. Doesn't matter. You just sit. This is rather like the soft version of Buddha under the Bodhi tree. Just the willingness to sit with what's coming up. Without a strategy, without a practice, without a method, without even a kind of mental knowing how. The mental knowing how doesn't really matter in this softness. And you say, well, it doesn't sound like it matters because it's, it's like, well, what good is that? But actually, there's such a door in a way that opens, or such a porousness. Something happens in our softening. Something happens in our willingness. Something happens on a deeper level through our sheer willingness to open to how we feel, for instance, how we really feel, to own how we really feel. I mean, you don't have to make a meal of it. You don't have to interpret it. How I feel is, well, actually, the truth is that I, in this moment, feel a lot of sorrow, a lot of regret, a lot of deep emotion. But that's okay. It sort of comes up and is owned, and then it releases. It doesn't mean anything about you. These things don't mean anything about us unless we give it a kind of label. Well, it means I'm a miserable, depressed person who's got problems because they can't let go of the past. No, it doesn't. It only does if you say that it does. If you decide to constantly interpret your experience as what it means about you, then you don't really get to be direct with how you truly feel and meeting what arises. So this is a very different invitation to soften, particularly in a way to soften the interpretation of how you feel. To soften the interpretation of how you feel, which allows you to just meet how you feel directly. In fact, this is a great practice in relationship as well, to meet how the other feels without interpretation, directly. The other person gets to speak, gets to express themselves, preferably with ownership of how they feel, not how you make them feel. And you're able to sit as that person, as your other, as the lover, whatever, expresses how they feel, and you're present with how they feel, but you don't have to interpret it. It's this automatic interpretation that we have that in many ways creates such a problem. It takes us away from the presence of the direct felt sense in this moment. And yet the real power is in the direct felt sense of this moment. And that's where we get to soften, because it is soft. Presence in this context is soft. It's not weak. It's not hard. It's soft. Presence hasn't got any judgment, hasn't got any interpretation, hasn't got any heat, hasn't got any reactivity. It hasn't really got any quality in that sense. It just is. And that isness is soft. And this all happens because we've been willing, with this courageous inner quality that I'm talking about, an inner willingness to let go. To let go of the one who wants to constantly, like, fight almost. And doing battle, always in resistance, endlessly fathoming it out, to resist or not to resist. That is the question. Don't resist. Surrender. Surrender into the softness of direct experience and see what happens.